Welcome, Frontrunner family. We are now joined by Muftawu Nabila Abdullahi. He works for Joy FM in Ghana, Accra, and he'll give us a bit more about Orlando Pirates' new signing, Kwame Peprah. It's evening in South Africa, Muftawu, so good evening.
It's evening in Ghana. Good evening too, because it's about 5 p.m. here, so it's evening.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, man. So tell us about this Orlando Pirates new signing, Kwame Peprah.
Okay, so Kwame Peprah is a striker with who played for King Faisal in the just ended Ghana Premier League season. He played, if my memory serves me right, out of 34 Premier League matches, he played 29 of those matches and scored 12 goals and made 10 assists in the just ended campaign. And he was one of the reasons why King Faisal were able to survive relegation in the Ghana Premier League. He was instrumental, he was a key asset. The club changed as many as 4 different coaches. But despite these, Kwame Peprah was key in all the coaches who came in to take over the reins of King Faisal. You are looking at a player who is very good player on the shoulder. You are looking at a player who is very good in the air. You are looking at a player who is very good with his feet. He can score with either of his legs or foot. He's very good in the air. He can score with his head. He's very good at running at defenders. He's very good at finishing. And you're looking at a young player. Though I feel he's still unrefined, you're looking at a player who has got the hunger and desire to give it all. Just about 3 months ago, when the Ghana Football Association arranged a final match between Ghana's Black Stars B, which is our child national team, against Uzbekistan, he was one of the star men of that team that traveled to Uzbekistan for that friendly. Though the team lost 2-1 in the friendly, he stood out. He made sure that he was counted among the players who wore the colors of the country with pride. So I think Orlando Pirates have gotten one player they can be very proud about, a player who will always be hungry to give them his all anytime he's called upon, and a player who is going to deliver them goals if they are patient with him.
Now, he's still a young player. Do you think you need time to adapt to the PSL?
Well, the PSL and that of the Ghana Premier League are 2 different competitions. Ghana would say the Ghana Premier League is our top flight. So players who play in the Ghana Premier League should be able to adapt in a top flight competition they find themselves. But the fact of the matter is that he's changing a new environment. He's going to meet new people. He has to be transitioned into the new environment before he can adapt and deliver. It's not every single player who can hit the ground running. And I wouldn't expect Kwame Peprah to do so. I would expect him to be ushered into the PSL gradually. The demands might be so high for him at this stage, but I do think that if Orlando Pirates are patient with him, he's going to deliver whatever they ask of him. This I'm very optimistic about. Because, as I mentioned earlier, you're looking at a player who has got the inner hunger. You're looking at a player who is committed. You're looking at a player who's got the finishing skill. You're looking at a player who's got the dribbling skill. And if you have all these assets in one footballer, then you have a very good player in your team. But I don't expect him to hit the ground running. But I hope that he serves me a humble pie in this opinion that I've just shared on ahead.
As you know, Orlando Pirates is a very big team. Richard Ofori is under pressure right now from Orlando Pirates fans, as you can see on social media.
Yes.
Now, with Kwame Peprah, does he have any international experience? Because Orlando Pirates will be playing in the CAF Confederations Cup.
Yeah. Okay, so when you talk of international experience, if you are bringing down to the national team level, especially the main black stars that we have in the country, he's here to make any appearance for the national team. Though the last AFCON qualifiers against Sao Tome and Principe and that of South Africa, there were some calls within the Ghanaian media that he should be included because he had shown that he deserved it. As of February this year, he was one of the few players to have scored as many as 10 goals in the Ghana Premier League. And this was a competition, and this was a player who was playing in a club that was struggling to win matches. So if you're playing in a team that lacks quality, what it tells you is that if he had found himself in a setup like House of Hope, in a setup like Asante Kotoko, in a setup like Midiama SC, Ediana Stars, then the possibility of this gentleman scoring more goals would have been higher because you have quality to provide him those balls to finish. But unfortunately, he found himself in an environment where the players, their quality-wise, is not up there. So it was right for people to admit calls for him to be included into the team. But then there were also other players who stood up. They're talking about the likes of Diawisi Taylor, who ended the season as a top scorer in the Ghana Premier League. You're talking about Glasson Awako, who was instrumental. You're talking about the likes of Abdul Ghani, who was at the heart of Kotoko's defense. And you are looking at a position that Kwame Peprah, people were calling Kwame Peprah to occupy, that already had so many players. Jordan Ayew, there was Edwin Jesse, then you have Joel Femaye. And so that department of the team was already occupied, and it was going to be very difficult for a player like Kwame Peprah to get crushed and get in there. But I think that if he was given an opportunity, he would have merited it. But at this point, he never got it. And if he shows the quality that he gave Ghanaians in the just ended Ghana Premier League season, the possibility of CK Akuno giving him a look is extremely high, especially in the CAF Confederation Cup.
Because another thing I was asking myself is if it's so good, how are Ghanaians taking this news that he's headed to South Africa instead of Europe? Because that's where most elite Ghanaian players go.
You see, if you take a look at Ghanaian players and their careers in South Africa, there are a lot of them. I talk about the likes of Fatau Dauda, Edwin Jima. I talk about the likes of recently Ofori. We've had the likes of Lawrence Tete, who is a former captain of Ghana Black Satellites. You're talking about the likes of Jonathan Mensah, who played for was it Chipas FC, if my memory serves me right, before he went for the 2009 Under-20 tournament in Egypt. So clearly, we've got a certain history of Ghanaian players playing in the PSL, and we've never had issues with Ghanaian players playing in the PSL. But the other aspect too is that there were a couple of offers on the table for him. Kumasi Asante Kotoko, which is one of the topmost clubs in the country, were also pursuing him. They actually made an offer of about 120,000 in Ghana City. I had a copy of that letter, but Kim Faisal were not willing to sell to any club domestically. They were willing to do business with clubs outside the country because they felt that a club outside the country was always going to pay better. A club outside the country was always going to give him a new test. And if there was an onward transfer of the player, they stand a chance of earning better than a local club signing him. So I think that was what influenced their decision to allow him to go to South Africa. But the other aspect, if you look at the offers from the likes of Israel, there were other offers from Ethiopia. Basically, if I were to choose, if you ask me to choose, I would choose Israel over South Africa. But you also need to look at it from the business perspective and career-wise. If he goes to Israel, which environment would he settle better than South Africa? So you have to make that decision that would also impact the career of the player. And I feel that Kim Faisal arrived at this decision of letting him go to South Africa because they felt that in South Africa, he will play more. And if he plays more and becomes very consistent, his career will blossom. And I think it was one of the best decisions that they have taken to let him go to South Africa instead.
So in conclusion, he's a rough diamond waiting to be polished in the PSL.
Yes, I think he's still unrefined. He needs to polish up a bit. But this is dependent on the technical team and himself. If he's willing to go into the game, I don't think he would take a long time to settle in because he's a mentally strong guy. A couple of times you've heard about Kwame Peprah, you're looking at a boy who takes responsibility where it matters. So I think that in conclusion, a bit of unrefined product, but with a little touch, you have gold in your possession.